Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about a case of an heiress who eloped with a poor young man only to be hunted down across borders by her mother. June 8, 2000, a 25-year-old heiress refusing to marry the 60-year-old man her parents arranged for her, fled from Canada to India. There, she secretly married her poor, long-distance boyfriend. Her rebellion utter lie infuriated her mother and uncle. They believed their daughter had brought shame upon the family. So, they bribed Indian gangsters to set up an ambush one evening while the heiress and the poor young man were out on amateur cycle date. The ambush was sprung. The young man was slashed, suffering severe injuries and falling into a coma. The heiress was dragged into a car and taken to Airmote Village farmhouse. The greedy kidnappers called their employer, demanding more money, but in a family meeting, no one was willing to spend an extra cent on the daughter who had defiled the family schnorr. The mother coldly told the kidnappers, "You have a woman in your hands, don't you? That is your payment. Do whatever you want. She's at your disposal." The very next day, the heiress's body, disheveled, was found discarded in an outdoor irrigation ditch. Her throat had a fatal wound, and her body was covered in bruises and knife wounds. The autopsy report showed she had endured hours of torture before death. Why would a girl educated in modern Canada be hunted down across borders by her own mother? What kind of cultural shackles lie behind the word honor? The victim was named Jaswinder Kaur, but her close friends and family called her Jassi. Jassi was born and raised in Canada too, a family of Indian descent, practicing the Sikh religion. Her ancestors had initially immigrated from Punjab, India, to Canada's west coast in the early 20th century. Later, the entire extended family settled in a Sikh community near Vancouver, surrounded entirely by Sikh H's. This is where Jassi grew up. Her uncle was a farm owner who had grown wealthy from blueberry cultivation. After his father was diagnosed with schizophrenia, the uncle took over family affairs. He led the large family, controlled all finances, and centrally managed living supplies. He was the undisputed patriarch of their family. Traditional Sikh families are very tight-knit. His parents, siblings, and uncles all lived together. Women could only leave after marriage to live with their husband's family. Within the family, daughters were considered the family's wealth, to be well protected to ensure their behavior and thoughts remained pure, so they could eventually marry into a higher bidder. Throughout Yasai's childhood, honor, humiliation, and punishment were central themes of life. All the men around her she met to be fighting for honor. Ironically, the foundation of this honor was ensuring their women were obedient and submissive, never bringing shame to the family. Girls were allowed to study, but only superficially. The family never intended for them to excel academically and achieve high status. No matter how educated they were, their ultimate destiny was to be confined to a tiny kitchen, cooking and doing housework for their husbands and children, repeating their mothers' lives. The girls themselves had little motivation to study, and their families didn't want them to stand out either. As they grew older, the restrictions on the girls increased. Take Jassi as an example. She was tall and wanted to learn basketball, but playing basketball meant contact with males and wearing shorts for ventilation, which her parents could accept at all. It's basketball now. Who knows if it will be dating, alcoholism, or drugs later. Even though the whole family lived in the West, Jassi absolutely could not become westernized. Her mother pulled Jassi aside that night and criticized her for hours, denouncing how degenerate the white girls at school were. Jessie was not allowed to go out alone. If she wanted to buy something, a male family member could do it for her. If she absolutely had to go out, she must be accompanied by a male. After high school, Jessie found a job as an esthetician at Aloco Beauty Salon. Her brother drove her to and from work every day. Meanwhile, her parents began selecting a husband for her. Arranged marriage was a family tradition. Whether the man was young or old, good or bad was entirely decided by the parents, without a doubt. Yasai Shusband had to be a man of the same caste and socioeconomic status not lower than Yasai's family, Anyan of strong families to further consolidate wealth and reputation, but such men were hard to find in Canada. Her parents discussed it briefly and set their sights on Punjab, India, a forbidden love. At the end of 1994, the 19-year-old Jessie visited her hometown, India, for the first time, and it was here that she met the love of her life, Sukhwinder, an impoverished 18-year-old low-caste rickshaw driver. Sukhwinder's home consisted of 2 brick rooms without even plaster. Stepping inside, your foot landed on plain dirt. There was no concrete floor, and dust was everywhere. To the right of the house were fields. To the left, a couch where an elderly uncle usually lived, eating and sleeping with the cattle. Logically, with Sukhwinder's family conditions in India, he would likely remain single for life. Fortunately, Sukhwinder was exceptionally good at kabaddi, a contact sport, testing endurance and agility. The rules are somewhat like an intensified version of tag and are very spectator-friendly. Sukhwinder was physically fit and very noticeable in the team, instantly catching Ya's eye. One evening, before heading home, Jessie found lipstick in her bag and drew Apper's heart on a tissue, asking a friend to slip it to Sukhwinder. Over the next few days, Sukhwinder and Jessie often coincidentally met. On the road, Jessie gave him another tissue with "I love you" written in lipstick. Before Sukhwinder could respond, Jessie suddenly rode a bicycle to Sukhwinder's home. Using the excuse of finding Sukhwinder, a girlfriend in Canada, she took his personal photo from his mother, Sean's secret romance and marriage. From 1995 to 1999, during the 4 years Jessie was back in Canada, the young couple's slow blossomed through long-distance calls, secret love letters, and the help of intermediaries. However, bearing fruit was difficult. Jessie came from a good background and was well educated. Sukhwinder was illiterate and had to learn how to write letters on the spot. Yasai's family would never accept him under any circumstances. In 1999, following the uncle's wishes, Yasai's parents decided to marry her off to a wealthy 60-year-old man. Jessie firmly refused, but faced with family tradition, she had no say in the matter. Longing for her beloved, Jessie pretended she wanted to travel to India and asked her mother to take her back. In March 1999, Jessie and Sukhwinder secretly married in a Sikh Gurdwara temple in India. A Gurdwara is a Sikh place of assembly and worship. However, everyone knew in their hearts that Yasai's family would not let them off in a culture that placed such importance on tradition. Jessie marrying Sukhwinder would bring immense shame to the family, and coincidentally, Yasai's family was more conservative than most. Jessie had carried the honor of others since birth. Even after returning to Canada, she didn't dare let her family discover her marriage to Sukhwinder. The couple continued Their secret calls and letters as before, but a long-distance relationship was until permanent solution. Jassy paid some money for Sukhwinder, planning to have him immigrate to Canada. Meanwhile, Jassy's parents, uncles, and others grew suspicious that something was wrong with Jassy. The family continued selecting husbands for her, intent on marrying her to the man the family approved of. Jassy felt increasingly suffocated at home. The detestable customs troubled her immensely, yet she had very few people she could trust. Jassy loved her mother, but she had nothing to say to her. She became a stranger in her own home, monitored by uncles and cousins. Discovery and retribution. Finally, on November 4th, 1999, the secret of Yassai's marriage to the poor young man was discovered. It started when Sukhwinder's mother went to the Gurd, where the couple had married to pray. The caretaker's wife came over to congratulate her. Exlai, Ming how Sukhwinder had married such a beautiful wife, and heard they were already at the immigration stage. Soon, Sukhwinder's mother would be able to go abroad and enjoy a comfortable life. The mother only knew her son was dating Jassy, not that they had been bold enough to marry. She hurried home to question her son. Sukhwinder instinctively lied to his mother, saying it was all rumors and not to believe them. His father had died early, and his mother had single-handedly raised Sukhwinder and his brother. Sukhwinder simply didn't have the courage to tell his mother he was abandoning her for love to go far away. Torn with conflict, Sukhwinder went to a bar, got drunk, and said some things he should have. Coincidentally, a relative from Yassai's mother's side was also there and heard this astonishing secret. In January 2000, Yassai's family received a call from their relatives in India. Jassy was immediately placed under house arrest. Everyone agreed that this shameful union must be erased from the family history, since Sikh tenets completely reject caste and class systems. Advocating for equality, Yassai's family could undo Sukhwinder's low status against him. So, they simply had someone forge a document claiming that Jassy and Sukhwinder were related by blood from the same village, declaring that the couple had violated Sikh tenets and their marriage was invalid. The uncle, changing his usual ruthless attitude, kindly deceived Jassy, saying he planned to help Sukhwinder immigrate to Canada. He claimed that as long as Jassy signed these notarized documents written in Punjabi, the immigration process could be completed immediately. Jassy had never been exposed to Punjabi and tread a single word, but at this point, she had no other choice. She signed obediently, hoping her uncle would let them go for the sake of past affection. The uncle flew to India with the documents, gathered relatives, knocked on Sukhwinder's family's door, and threatened to beat Sukhwinder's family to death if he didn't divorce. Jassy, Sukhwinder's mother, was terrified out of her wits, but still straightened her back and stared at Sukhwinder, saying if you truly love her, then listen to them. The uncle raised Astic to hit her, but unexpectedly, some villagers saw the commotion and called the police. Not wanting a conflict with the police, the uncle left Sukhwinder's home with his men, but this didn't tell me the Punjab police were reliable. It's no exaggeration to say that the Punjab police are among the most corrupt in the world. Their record of corruption is appalling. Extortion and bribery are the norm. The power bestowed by their badges is entirely used to supplement their low wages. For the wealthy, the police can solve any problem. Sukhwinder was unrich, but Jassy's family was. In February 2000, the uncle presented the documents Jassy had signed. The letter accused Sukhwinder and his friends of kidnapping and assaulting Jassy, forcing her to sign the marriage documents. Furthermore, the uncle told the police that Sukhwinder and Jassy were related by blood, so according to Indian law, Sukhwinder was simply ineligible to marry Jassy. On February 23rd, Liang Qian Sukhwinder's mother and younger brother were arrested. During their detention, they suffered inhuman beatings with sticks. 2 of Sukhwinder's friends were also taken and tortured. Sukhwinder hid for 2 weeks, figuring out how to rescue his family and friends. From detention, he managed to contact Jassy. Only then did Jassy realize what a deep trap her uncle had dug. Escape and reunion. On March 8, 2000, Jassy managed to slip out of the house and wrote a letter to the Indian police from a local notary's office. She stated that she had been forced by her family to sign the documents against Sukhwinder. She sincerely wanted to marry Sukhwinder and hoped the Indian police would release his family, but the uncle's network of connections was clearly stronger. They joined forces with the police, insisting that the new statement Jassy sent from Canada was forged. One police officer's secret lie messaged Sukhwinder through an intermediary, asking if he was willing to pay money to make the case go away. He just needed ED to come and apologize properly to Yas's uncle and offer some money, and the matter would be over. The more Sukhwinder thought about it, the more it felt like a trap, so he hid even more covertly. Meanwhile, Yas's friend in Canada called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, and rescued Jassy from her suffocating home. But this action completely infuriated Jassy's family. In their eyes, the police intervention had made a shame that could have been resolved behind closed doors, public, severely damaging the family's reputation. In April 2000, friends helped buy Jassy a plane ticket. She was scheduled to land at Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, India, on April 10th. This is the gateway to India, full of touts. Yas's Indian relatives had some usual contact with these people, and the touts agreed to help them watch for Yas's whereabouts to prevent Jassy from being taken by her numerous relatives. Sukhwinder arrived at the airport 4 days early. He showered in airport bathrooms, slept on luggage carts at night, not daring to leave for Assakand. Jassy arrived several hours later than planned. Sukhwinder, beating Jassy's family to it, took Jassy home. That night, all fears melted away. The next day, Jassy went to court to testify, withdrawing the charges against Sukhwinder. Sukhwinder's family was acquitted and released. The family was finally reunited. According to Jassy's plan, Sukhwinder could use the marriage certificate to immigrate to Canada. Once in Canada, by interacting more with her parents, perhaps they could accept Sukhwinder and everyone could live together harmoniously. Jassy lived at Sukhwinder's home for about 3 months. Sukhwinder's family prepared a proper Indian wedding for them, making up for the regret of their secret marriage. Jassy occasionally called her family in Canada. Her mother sometimes scolded them bitterly. Other times, resignedly said, "Since you're already married, just let it be." However, the threat was constant. Yas's relatives in India never let them go. Friends close to Sukhwinder almost accompanied him 24/7 with guns. But Sukhwinder was, after all, an adult, unmarried. Being constantly surrounded by friends was also very uncomfortable. The murder. On June 8, 2000, Sukhwinder discussed with Jassy going to the market in Enerby town to buy some things. The to rode their motorcycle around the surrounding villages and didn't start returning until dusk fell. The road cutting through the wheat fields was empty, except for a white car parked next to the irrigation canal where the couple often walked. Sukhwinder could unsee if anyone was in the car, and cautious Lai continued forward. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got close, 3 gangsters suddenly got out of the car, brandishing sharpened hockey sticks, and walked towards them. Sukhwinder, with his good athletic reflexes, instinctively dodged, but as a result, one of the men swung his stick, hitting Jassy directly on the head. The 3 men swarmed, tightly grabbed Jassy, and dragged her by the waist into the car. Sukhwinder desperately tried to rescue her, but the 3 men were fierce. One slash cut off half of Sukhwinder's palm, another violently hit Sukhwinder sheath with the hockey stick. After Sukhwinder fell to the ground, an assailant came over and felt for Sukhwinder's pulse. But because he felt the wrong spot, he mistakenly believed Sukhwinder was already dead. The 3 men, confident Lai, got into the car and drove away. Jassy was taken to a farmhouse over 60 kilometers away, where she was subjected to horrific assault, torture, and murder. According to the confession of one of the killers, they tied Jassy to a chair and called Yas's family to discuss the murder payment. Jassy's mother, Malkat Kaur Sidhu, answered the phone. Jassy cried, begging her mother to save her, but her mother showed no mercy. She then handed the phone to Yazai's uncle, Surjit Singh Badisha. The 3 killers told the uncle over the phone that they had originally agreed to kill only one person. Now that Sukhwinder was dead, if they wanted to proceed with killing Jassy, they needed more money. No one in Yazai's family was willing to pay extra, but they all wanted Jassy dead. Finally, Yazai's mother made the decision. She said, "You have a woman. That is your reward. Do what you want." Jassy was offered to these 3 killers. After a long night, the killers threw Yazai's body into a ditch about a kilometer from the farmhouse. The next morning, a passerby discovered Yazai's brutally ravaged body and reported it to the police. The police contacted Yazai's mother in Canada. The mother flat-lie denied that Jassy was her daughter, saying no one in her family wanted anything to do with Jassy, and the police could dispose of the body as they saw fit. Yazai's body was ultimately handed over to Sukhwinder's family, who cremated and buried her, according to Sikh tradition. As for Sukhwinder, he was in a coma in the hospital for about a month. His family sent him to his uncle's house to recuperate, away from Jassy's vicious relatives. The flawed pursuit of justice. Less than a month later, the Indian police had largely solved the case. A total of 13 people were arrested on suspicion of murder. Most confessed during interrogation. Police found 2 mobile phones on one of the direct perpetrators. Before and after the crime, the killer had made 147 calls to Yazai's uncle and 40 calls to his accomplice, the one who cut Yazai's throat. Substantial evidence indicated that Yazai's family in Canada were the masterminds behind the case. According to Canadian law, regardless of where the murder occurs, those who plotted cannot escape responsibility. Yazai's friend went to Canadian police stations multiple times, demanding the arrest of Yazai's mother and uncle, but the calls for justice went unanswered. In 2002, Indian police told the media they had obtained very clear evidence proving that Yazai's mother and uncle planned the murder and paid for it. On January 31, 2005, Sukhwinder, still in India, was accused of rape by a woman. Sukhwinder was arrested, facing 15 years in prison. With the financial influence of Yazai's uncle, Sukhwinder was denied bail. Sukhwinder's story moved a publisher, who launched a campaign to free the innocent, bringing international attention to the case. He also hired a lawyer for Sukhwinder. Sukhwinder suffered a manslaughter in Punjab jail. According to his lawyer, this was retaliation from Jassie's family, who had paid the girl's parents a large sum to frame Sukhwinder. In October 2005, the key witness in Yasai's murder case died in a car accident in India. This person was one of the 3 direct killers, but had later become a prosecution witness, helping the police solve the case. To this day, the cause of his death remains a mystery. Of the remaining 12 suspects, 7 were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, but just 3 years later, 3 were acquitted and released. In April 2005, Sukhwinder, framed for rape, regained his freedom after serving 44 months in prison. The so-called victim admitted they had been threatened by Yasai's family, who said they would kill them if they didn't falsely accuse Sukhwinder. Long-delayed reckoning. On January 6, 2012, Yasai's mother and uncle were arrested in Canada for murder. In May 2014, the Canadian Minister of Justice approved the extradition of the 2 defendants to India. But the 2 argued that they might face torture and abuse in Indian prisons and thus could untact a fair trial. Canadian International Human Rights Lawyers, the Canadian Centre for Victims of Torture, and the Canadian Council for Refugees also opposed the extradition. On February 26, 2016, the Supreme Court of Canada overturned the ruling, revoking the extradition order. On September 8, 2017, India promised not to use torture on the 2 defendants. The Supreme Court of Canada agreed to extradite the 2 to India to stand trial. However, the defendants' lawyers used loopholes in Canada's judicial system to prolong their extradition time to India, causing the trial to be postponed until 2019. On January 24, 2019, Yasai's mother and uncle were deported to India. On January 25th, Indian police escorted the 2 to appear in court in Malarkotla, India. On December 16, 2020, Jassie's mother was released on bail. In November 2021, the 2 defendants appeared in a Punjab court. They declared their innocence, insisting that Sukhwinder must have killed their daughter and framed them. Not long after, Jassie's uncle was also released on bail. Epilogue: unending persecution. However, Sukhwinder, the survivor in the murder case, remains entangled in legal battles. Many police officers assisting Jassie's uncle have brought at least 6 false charges against Sukhwinder, causing him and his family much suffering in prison. Investigators supporting Sukhwinder have also faced repercussions as air assault. Now over 20 years have passed since the murder, but the true masterminds have still not been brought to justice. This case prompted Canada to revise its laws related to honor killings, but similar tragedies within Sikh communities have yet to be eradicated. Alright, that's the full account of this case. Thank you all for your support. We'll see you next time.